Have you ever wanted to randomly die? No? Well, neither did the hundreds of people on this iceberg chart who are victims of all of these serial killers. We're about to talk about all of these. But the real joke here is that if you watch this channel, or if YouTube recommended this channel to you, or if you just live in the 21st century, some little part of you probably does want to die. So, welcome to level 12 of the Ultimate Unsolved True Crimes Iceberg chart. Yep, that's right. We're 12 levels in. So, buckle your fuckles, get cozy, and I hope you're prepared to hear some mildly horrifying shit, because that's what we're going to be talking about for the next, hour. Also, before I take you to Agony Town and really slap the glizzy on you, there is an entire playlist with well over a dozen videos and more than 12 hours worth of content that's just true crime. So if you like true crime, there's a shit ton of it. Go ahead and watch some of it, and I'll see you here later. Or don't, I can't really tell you what to do. Either way, the playlist is in the up there part. So, yeah. The Dryfuse family murders. Virginia's a sad state. It's a sad state that lived off of coal, and suddenly coal isn't the profitable thing anymore, so now it's just kind of been left to wither up and die like most Republican states. So, of course, the only thing I could find about the Dryfuse family murder, besides vague references to the man exonerated for the crimes, was an opinion piece on why the death penalty should be okay, and I'll get into whether or not I agree or disagree with that after I read you the details of the case. In 1994, 34-year-old Bonnie Lou Dryfuse, her two young children, and a young cousin were murdered inside her home in western Pennsylvania. They were stabbed a combined 64 times through Wow, I'm not in a reading mood tonight, apparently. Though Dryfuse's husband was originally a suspect, it was their crack addict neighbor, Thomas Kimball Jr., who was arrested and charged with the horrific murders. Crack does do interesting things to the brain. There was absolutely no physical evidence tying Kimball to the slaughter, but there were witnesses who said he had been near the scene of the crime just prior to the murders, and prosecution also presented testimony from 3 jailhouse snitches who claimed that Kimball had admitted to the crimes. A jury convicted him of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced him to death. 2 years after Kimball was convicted, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned the decision because a judge in the original case barred evidence that would have cast doubt about Kimball's involvement in the crimes. At a new trial, Kimball's defense team presented evidence that suggested Dryfuse's husband may have been the real killer, though he has never been charged with the crime, and one of his jailhouse informants recanted and said he had been pressured into his previous testimony. The new jury acquitted Kimball on all charges in 2002, but he wasn't done being involved with the legal system. He has since pleaded guilty to drug charges on at least 2 separate occasions. Now, for one, I need to scroll up and see who wrote this article. Victor Fiorillo. Victor Fiorillo, you're fucking stupid, mate. I don't know how to put it lightly to you, but you weren't dropped as a child, you were likely thrown. If the Supreme Court overturns a decision, unless there is somehow grandiose evidence that has been hidden, the Supreme Court is likely right. That's the beauty of the justice system. Though it does not function in the fucking slightest at lower levels, you can bet your sweet cheeks if it's brought to the Supreme Court of a state, it's gonna function right. There is no physical evidence tying Kimball to the slaughter. There is simply 3 jailhouse snitches, and let me tell you, people who are weaselly enough to snitch will come up with bullshit on the fly. This is because snitches will either have their fucking ass beat in the jailhouse, or they snitch and they get out. So if someone's desperate enough to snitch, they're trying to get out. They're trying to not be hemmed up anymore. Now, accusing Kimball of being a crack addict, whether he is or isn't, the status of substance he uses, no matter how much I may look down upon crack, methamphetamine, and other substances, should not in the slightest affect legal opinions unless that is the result and the revolution of the case. It's not. Whether or not Thomas Kimball Jr. was doing crack does not matter. Crack cocaine being in a system isn't related to the crimes. The fact remains that a jury convicted him of 4 counts of first-degree murder with no physical evidence, with nothing but questionable testimony from jailhouse snitches who didn't see him commit the crime, but supposedly heard him admit to the crime, and the judge, in the original case, withheld evidence. I think that saying this man should die is pretty fucking stupid. It's really fucking stupid. Legitimately. I'm not exactly unopposed to the death sentence when you know for certain that the person you were charging to die has done it. If you catch a motherfucker in 4K Ultra HD, dick out, like you can identify him by the veins in his testicles, sure, kill him. Go ahead. But otherwise, no, don't. Racoon Bend Murders. With a silly and fun name like that, that's how you know that the dog your dad definitely didn't run over backing out of the driveway was sent here. Racoon Bend, Texas in 1996 suffered from some issues. So let's read about it. On November 14th, 1996, a horrible crime took place in the small town of Racoon Bend, Texas. The town, which only has a population of roughly 400, is between Austin and Houston. Allow me to sidetrack from the true crime to say, Texas is my least favorite state. Texas is mid in every way, and on a state tier list, Texas would be fucking F. I've read too much about Texas in the last few weeks. Now, with that out of the way, so I can contain my unbearable rage at Governor Greg Abbott, let's get into this. In this small town, violent crime is rare. But on that date, a widower by the name of Will Stittenpole planned on having company. His daughter, 65-year-old Bernice Schiller, and her husband, Alden, were going to stop by and help him clean his trailer. However, when Bernice and Alden didn't make it home that evening, their son went to Will's house to check on them. Will instead discovered 4 bodies in the bedroom of the house and called the police. The victims were quickly identified as Will, Bernice, Alden, and Will's 81-year-old neighbor, Ray Payne, who lived in the trailer next door. All 4 had been shot by either a rifle or a shotgun and seemed to have fallen upon each other when shot. Police called the scene a bloodbath. 8 shots were fired, damaging enough to the victims that the funeral director refused to allow the family to see the deceased. Police initially believed robbery to be the motive, but this is a small town in Texas. Spoiler alert, everyone's broke. The only thing keeping that town's economy alive is cows and methamphetamine. And what do you fucking know? Well, Stuttenpole was a cattle farmer and had a publicly known distrust of banks. Well, that's stupid. If you don't trust banks, don't advertise it. He kept his money at home. However, when officers began to investigate the scene, they found $700 in cash and valuables just laying around the house. There was no sign of a break-in or forced entry either, which led to them ruling out robbery. No arrests were made, and evidence was handed over to the FBI. Racoon Bend police have come forward to say they have a suspect, but not enough evidence to arrest him. They have indicated that he is a local. No traveler would waste their time even killing anyone in such a small podunk town, and a reward of $40,000 is being offered for information in this case. However, locals have indicated that they don't have a lot of faith in their police department. No small town really does, most of the time, with at least one commenter on a forum saying that they botched the crime scene when the family was murdered. Wow. We've never seen cops do that before. This is a completely new development. Now, there are questions and hypotheses posited in this Reddit article written by Circus Master Claus 11 months ago. Thank you, Circus Master Claus, for the article. Big preach. And the author of this article is questioning that. I'm repeating myself, so I'm just gonna make a meta-humor joke, haha funny, shut the fuck up, and repeat myself. The main question is motive. These victims don't seem to have any kind of secret life, and are well-liked according to reports. What reason could there possibly be to kill an elderly farmer, his daughter, son-in-law, and his neighbor? And was Ray Payne just really fucking unlucky, or was he targeted in this as well? The author's first thought was that it was a robbery. Cattle farmers have quite a bit of money. They're what keeps small towns in Texas like this alive, besides a gas station and meth. $700 was found in Will's home, though, and that's a cost of one calf in the cattle industry. Surely, if he was a cattle farmer who refused to use banks, he'd have more funds than that in his home. It would be interesting to see if there had been any cattle auctions recently, which could potentially do anything, according to the author. Whether or not he had bought or sold at that auction could be crucial information, but you're expecting far too much intelligence out of Texas natives. I think the only acceptable Texas native is anyone from Texas watching this video, and my editor, who is unfortunately trapped in hell herself. Go donate to her PayPal so that she can escape Governor Greg Abbott's hellhole. Leduc, Alberta serial killer. Going to the frigid wastes of Canada for just 1 second, we have a potential serial killer in Leduc and Alberta, as well as maybe Edmonton, according to my research. There really isn't a confirmed case, or a confirmed name, or a confirmed victim list, or a confirmed anything here. It's just a suspicious amount of bodies that have been found in one spot that's a little, sus. Specifically in this Reddit article written by Yes Hunty 6 years ago, the remains of 5 women, all sex workers, were found in the same rural area of Leduc County between 2003 to 2015. The identity of the 5th woman was publicly released the day that article was written, since her remains were intermingled with Browers, whoever or whatever that is, when they were discovered. One of the women, Amber Takaro, recorded a phone conversation that the author is sure many of us have listened to. No, we have not. And the RCMP wanted everyone at the time to listen to it so they can try and put a name to the voice. The RCMP thinks these murders are the work of a serial killer now, and the bodies have all been left between the range Road 241 and 235 off Roley View Road in Leduc County. So, yeah, this guy hasn't been caught, there's been nothing public about the case, and I've been unable to find anything mildly important besides a slight rundown, and also journalists playing loosey-goosey with whether or not they're gonna shove their dick up the police department's ass and fuck over their investigation with a serial killing. There's been none of that, so even though this was 6 years ago, there's still not much about it, which means, unfun fact, that serial killer's probably still active. So, if you're a woman or a minority or a sex worker, be careful in Leduc County or Edmonton. Or just be careful. Because having a Boston bomber, a Boston marathon, and a Boston bomber at a Boston marathon wasn't enough, we have the Boston Rapist. So here's the details of the case, because I'm on unsolvedmysteries.fandom, which is always just a joy to read through. Police in Boston, Massachusetts are searching for a man who struck several strip malls in the area, robbing employees and raping some of the women there. He's been referred to as a strip mall rapist, and the first case occurred at a small downtown Boston store at 4 p.m. on December 16th, 1989. Jesus Christ, happy holidays, am I right? Another attack occurred on, oh my god, my jokes predict the future. I'm a prophet. Christmas Eve. Oh no. In the late afternoon, shortly before closing time, the assailant walked into a medical clinic at a mall in Braintree, 20 miles south of Boston, and while talking to a nurse at the front desk, his beeper went off. He excused himself to use a nearby phone. Shortly afterwards, he went behind the reception area to ask where he could throw away a piece of trash, and then revealed his piece of trash was actually a loaded gun. He told her not to get excited and cooperate with him, and I don't want to read the details of a rape case. Please. Because it was Christmas Eve, the clinic was nearly deserted and there were only 3 employees there. The assailant herded them into one room, forcing a female lab technician to tape the hands of the doctor and the nurse behind their backs. Leaving the nurse behind, he placed the doctor in one room and took the lab technician to the office cash box, where he forced her to give him $1,600 from it. Next, he took her into an examining room where a batshit. 3 days later, on December 27th, the assailant struck again at a woman's clothing store along Route 9 in a Framingham shopping mall. The location was similar to the previous one. That morning, he entered the store asking an 18-year-old employee, Julie, about gift certificates. He claimed he was looking for something for his girlfriend because, yeah, sure, you definitely have one of those, scumbag. He asked the manager, Tracy, to come over and help them, and she had a creepy feeling about him, but, fun fact, in retail, you're gonna have a creepy feeling about a lot of people, and you can't really just tell them to get the fuck out of your store as much as you wish to do so. Every day I wake up so glad I no longer work in retail. So Tracy wasn't too concerned because that's, like, once every hour. She hoped to help him and get him out of the store as soon as possible. When she got near him, she started picking up outfits for them to look at. As she turned to the clothing rack, he pulled a gun and stuck it in her back. I swear to God, I have several tabs open for research right now, and one of them keeps playing fucking music that interrupts my music, and I don't appreciate it. Anyway, he asked for their names and called Julie over. He told her he had a .357 pointed at Tracy's back and would shoot her if they didn't cooperate. He forced them to the back of the store. You know what happens next. Bad shit. Investigators were able to link the assailant to 9 different robberies, all within different towns in the greater Boston area. Tragically, 5 women were raped during those robberies, and the last known attack occurred at a mall in Norwood on January 16, 1990. At 1 p.m., the assailant ordered a female store employee into the back room where bad shit. He may have also robbed a store in Braintree on January 27th. A joint task force was set up involving officers from 8 different police forces, and they found significant similarities between all the cases. As a result, they are convinced that the same man is responsible for all 9 incidents. Because how many people are going around robbing stores and then raping employees in the greater Boston area between the holiday season of 1988 to 1990? I'll tell you who, not a lot. They believe the assailant is a professional as he conducts surveillance of his targets and picks them very carefully. He stays close to major highways and strikes mainly at strip-type malls with numerous stores. Stores usually have one main entrance, making it easier for him to escape. He appears to target younger females in the stores that only have 1 or 2 employees working. Sadly, his victims are extremely traumatized because, that's what fucking happens in rape cases. And some still have nightmares about their attacks because that's what fucking happens. Now, unfortunately, there are extra notes with the rapist featured on Unsolved Mysteries as the original Night Stalker, but that got us nothing. One in one hand, shit in the other, see which one fills up faster. We want this guy's head on a fucking pike. We don't get it. I want that news reporter and the next tab over to just shut the fuck up so I can listen to my music, and he won't. So this guy is still out there, which is really shitty. Viewers' tips, of course, of the original Night Stalker episode led to a local veterinarian as a suspect. However, he cooperated with the police and was cleared through DNA testing. The attacks did cease after the broadcast, though, because the rapist was either arrested on other charges or left the area to avoid capture. Either way, I still think that guy deserves to be castrated and then publicly executed. If only we could catch him. The Htoo-Maw family murders. Call this fucking episode Dom Toretto the way that everyone involved is family. The Htoo-Maw family was a Asian family in the Regina area that was killed. There's really not a lot of information because what fucking state is Regina in?
A few moments later.
Oh, Saskatchewan. Regina's in Saskatchewan. I think the only person I even have ever heard of from that area is Coulter Wall, a super cool blues musician that you should definitely check out. But yeah, there's like 50 people there. So I don't really think that anyone's gonna investigate any murders, and there is almost no fucking information besides the fact that these crimes remain unsolved. So as tragic and as shitty as it is, there's nothing to report on here. Paul's family, because you can't spell fun without the brutal deaths of an entire family. This is yet another Reddit article So, big thanks to user WhoDoneIt72 from approximately 3 years ago for writing this post that I can now read. Half a century ago, a family was brutally murdered in their own home in a quiet Vancouver neighborhood. Wow, we're really just focusing on the 5 Canadian serial killers today, aren't we? And today there are still far more questions than answers about this crime specifically. Why this family? Because some people are sick. Who would savagely beat a young girl to death as she lay sleeping in her bed? Because some people are sick. Anyway, David and Helen Pauls were both in their teens when their families emigrated from Russia to Canada. During their 16 years of marriage, they lived in Saskatchewan and Aldergrove before buying a home in Vancouver in September of 1956. The couple and their 11-year-old daughter lived in a house at the 1000 block of East 53rd Avenue. The family seemed to live a fairly ordinary life, but we don't really fucking know because we don't know these people. David worked in a warehouse of the downtown Woodward store, and Helen worked evenings at the home fancy sausage shop in East Hastings Street. Little Dorothy was in grade 6 at Walter Moberly School, where her fellow students described her as quiet. In today's world of crime scene investigation with modern tools and DNA testing, this crime could have been solved. But it's 1958. What's solving crimes in this era is racism and idiocy. And also cocaine. A fucking shit ton of cocaine. Holy shit, so much cocaine. So, it was clearly a different situation. What investigators know for sure is that 3 people were murdered during the evening of June 10th to the early morning hours of June 11th. Wow, thanks guys, that's really fucking helpful. At about 11:30 p.m. on the 10th, when 53-year-old David Pauls left his residence to pick up his wife at the bus stop after she finished work, he was surprised by an attacker just outside the rear basement door, who shot him in the head. He then used David's keys to enter the house. Mr. Pauls was seriously injured, but not fatally wounded, somehow. Little Dorothy Pauls was asleep in her upstairs bedroom when the suspect entered her room, bludgeoned her, and then beat her to death. Back downstairs, the killer dragged Mr. Pauls into the basement, beat him, shot him twice in the head, and killed him. Because he was lucky to survive 1 shot to the head. What's 2 more? Make it 3. 3rd time's a charm. The suspect went upstairs again, removed Dorothy's pajama bottoms, and left them on the floor beside the bed, and hopefully did nothing else. Helen Pauls, aged 47, returned to the house after finishing work at 11:30 p.m. A witness reports seeing her running home from the bus stop as it was raining, and her husband clearly never made it to pick her up. Unfortunately, when she made it home, she was shot and beaten to death in the front hallway, the same way I'm about to beat to death the same person who decided that putting pop-up ads on the next article over was a great idea, because this is the 4th time it's interrupted me. Now, of course, Mrs. Pauls still had her house keys in her pockets. The specific weapons were never identified with any certainty. A heavy instrument of some kind was used to beat the victims, and bullets recovered from the bodies were sent to more than one lab, which concluded they came from a .22 caliber revolver, likely a ROM RG-10 Colt-style 6-shot. Many theories have been discussed and pursued. Detectives considered that Dorothy may have been the target. I am pausing this so I can shut up that other article. There we go. There's theories that Dorothy was a target and the crime was sexually motivated, but there was no evidence of sexual assault, thank God. Robbery was a possibility. David's wallet, keys for the house, and his vehicle were taken, and Helen's purse was opened, but it's not known if anything was missing. There was even discussion that the murders may have been related to political unrest from their home country of Russia. The Pauls were Mennonite, and rumors circulated when the church community would not cooperate with the investigation. Because, yeah, there's political issues in Russia, so the Russian government is clearly going to have some immigrants who moved, almost 2 decades ago, decide to kill them. They're going to send someone to kill them. The case has frustrated investigators for decades, and the Pauls family is dead. That kind of needs to be justified, I guess, with the killers capturing, but it's been 60 years. So there's no way, contrary to what the author of this article states, that someone out there knows something. They're probably all dead. They got away with it. There's also a quote from a book and a suspect, but this crime was never solved, and I'm illiterate. I'm actually illiterate. I can't read. Littleton bowling alley murders. This is the website. This is a stupid sack of shit website that keeps fucking unmuting itself. Fuck you, website. Now, there's not a lot to be found about the Littleton bowling alley murders. Shocking. I know, a lot of these are very obscure. This article itself is begging people to come forward with information about the murders of Bobby Zajac, 23, Aaron Gola, 26, and James Springer, 29, who were shot to death inside the AMF Broadway bowling alley located at 5485 South Broadway in Littleton shortly before midnight on January 27th of 2002. Seeing as how it's been 20 years since this crime, it's probably not going to be solved. It's just, yeah, I hate to break it to you. Finishing off this iceberg with the final entry that we'll be covering today, and this video specifically, I'd like to remind you that Ratatouille is pro-rat propaganda. The Sims family murders is the last case we're going to be discussing, and it's another one of those that was absurdly hard to find anything on, so thank you for that. Thanks. There are, of course, musings on the internet about it, according to Carl Edders, a Tallahassee Democrat writer who definitely sounds like he knows what's going on in the internet world. Now I'm gonna go ahead and scroll through this and pray to God that something comes up. I don't think it will, so I'm just gonna read the article. A man described as a main suspect in the 50-year-old investigation of the Sims family murders has been commenting prolifically online recently, apparently contradicting the story he first told police. A memo submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement by former Assistant Tallahassee isn't in Florida, is it? Hold on. Tallahassee. Tallahassee is in Florida. This just in. I need to study geography again. Now, memo submitted by the Florida State Department of Law Enforcement by former State Attorney Jeremy Mutz, who was fired when this article was written, Rip Bozo, say the man's writings contradict his prior accounts, contradicts his girlfriend's statements, and makes statements that put him in conflict with hard evidence. Wow, it's almost like he's lying. People on the internet have never done that one before. The memo outlines information that may clear several longtime suspects and points to a main suspect. The man's name and the website where the recent comments can be found are redacted from the memo, probably to prevent some slimy journalist from getting their hands on it and completely ruining the entire investigation by leaking it, as this man certainly would have done had he known the name. The investigation into the October 22, 1996 murders of Robert and Helen Sims alongside their 12-year-old daughter is still active, which is impressive, but I guess people in Florida have nothing to do besides meth and fight alligators to the death for the ability to walk into a 7-Eleven unharmed. Now, the family was bound, shot, and stabbed to death in their home on Muriel Court off Gibbs Drive. I definitely know where that is. Certainly. Many in the city were attending the Mississippi State FSU football game, and the bodies were discovered by another Sims daughter who came home after a babysitting job. Wow, that's fucked. Mutz was fired for what State Attorney Willie Meggs says was inappropriate use of his position to gain information to write a book about the murders and contact with potential witnesses and FDLE. Mutz denied working on a book about the shocking crime. Sounds like something who's working on a book about a shocking crime would say. Now, of course, Mutz has had his run-ins with state attorneys higher-ups in the past, but, fun fact, I don't really care about this attorney. I just care about the crime, which I briefly discussed, so we're gonna go ahead and call it here. And that does it for the first half of level 12. I hope that was scrumptious. I hope that holds you over until I upload the next one. Now, if you're new here, go ahead and consider subscribing. It's completely free. You can always undo it later if you decide you hate my guts and you made it this far into the video, so either I'm very entertaining or you're very bored, and both are a win for me. Now, without further ado, once again, thank you for watching this far. Until next time, have a good time and memento mori.